Okay. Thanks for hanging out, and thanks to Dina for inviting me to read with her. I really enjoyed being in Tuscany with you. All those big buttons. Huge buttons. That was cool. This book, The Missing Jew, the first version came out in 1979 when I was 29, and the latest version came out last year. So it's about 46 years worth of poems. And I want to start with a poem that I wrote long ago. It's called Pilpul, and it's based on a real quote from Talmud, the first line, or the second line, and I think it's in Menachot. And a pilpul is a sort of Talmudic puzzler. Sometimes the students, I think, were a little rascally, and they would pose certain kinds of questions to get the rabbi's blood moving a bit. And this is an example. Okay, so it's called Pilpul. Rabbi, if a child is born with two heads, which head should wear the yarmulke? On which head the tefillin? Some say the right head. Some say the left. All quote Torah. Some say both heads, just in case. But if a man is born with two heads, he's always confused. He never knows on which head to wear the yarmulke. Two heads and only two eyes. He walks towards himself in the old cemetery where the rabbis are buried. There seems to be some disagreement. Some are saying, we are dead. Others, we are alive. Some say both. All quote Torah. So I'm going to zoom ahead to a more recent poem, since we just had a lovely meal. It's a poem dedicated to that most Jewish of all foods, gefilte fish. I guess you could call it an ode to gefilte fish. I didn't call it that, but there is a kind of reference here to Greek mythology, but I think as Jews we can stand up to every culture and have something to say and have something to say back to us. That's the world I want to live in. Okay, gefilte. Colorless, odorless, tasteless gefilte fish. Your hooves of brown jelly and ceremonial carrot tremble as if deciding between being and non-being. In the periodic table, you would be a xenon. I am here, says gefilte fish, and I'm not going anywhere. Take me as I am. Eat me to join a secret club. How I long for your unappetizing gray, fumit goo melting around your waist, your jaunty orange cap sliding askew. A bold dab of horseradish gives you flavor you never earned. Boiled ball of fish flesh and matzah meal, bland, succouring the bland. The bubbling stew you emerged from was a witch's cauldron of fish heads. Their dead eyes whirling wildly, you dripped like a zoftig Venus. Or are you one of the castrated balls of time? Or the chilled brain of a zombie? My fork divides you, my mouth waters. I crave your permanent humility, your humble inadequacy. You accept you will never be beautiful, which is beautiful. Like me, you can only be yourself. Eating you is almost a cannibalism. How soft you are like baby's food, mother pre-chewed. One taste, and I am me. So I want to read, I had a teacher once that talked about, she had things on Saturday nights, her name was Colette, and she spoke of the perfume of the Shabbat. So we're in the perfume of Hanukkah. And this poem is called Homeless Hanukkah. I think that every city has this issue. I live in New Orleans, and we have homeless folks on the streets, and I've read that you guys do too, although I haven't seen them yet. But I heard tell. So this poem is called Homeless Hanukkah. He's wearing an old scholar's robe, but his head is stuffed with straw. In the village of idiots, he is king of fleas. His teeth, rotten corn, his hands, torn rags. The rabbi of thunder blesses him with a crooked stick of fire. He kneels in the mud and cow flop. As the rain whips him, he shivers and stinks. The skies are ruined purple, the moon a blackened eye. He thinks again, why do I have a name? Let the thunder answer, or the moon winking in the sky. The old month is dying and the new one is born in the dark. He'll light a candle for courage and watch the tip of light twist through the braided wax. He'll light a candle and set it in the mud where it is most needed. He'll light a candle for the dumb cow. When the moon has buried itself behind the hill, he will sleep in a blanket of frost, an unlit candle, a crumpled shamus. Thanks. So this is my other Hanukkah poem. It's called Rededication, or The Do-Over. I was explaining Hanukkah the other night to a friend of mine who's adopted a 5-year-old, and I came across that word, dedication, trying to explain. And I said, well, we could just call it do-over, happy do-over, right? Because that's what Hanukkah means, do-over. Okay, so rededication. They took over my temple and filled it with idols. I saw myself bowing down to dim grotesques, to angry trolls. I got lost in a hall of mirrors and worshipped each angle of my faces till the light dimmed with estrangement and I slipped into a pool of murk. I slept in the temple. I grew old. The priests were numbness and indifference. No one ever came to worship there but me. One night, a man with a hammer came and smashed all the mirrors. The light flooded my eyes. Who would I worship now that there was nothing and I was nothing? And then I heard a new song sing itself in me. The men with hammers filled the halls and built. The doors flung open and crowds surged in, cousins, brothers, and sisters. I grabbed a broom and swept the dust of cracked idols. When night fell again, we lit a candle that burned for a week and a day. Thank you. So since we're talking about broken things, I'll read this little poem called The Broken Tablets. It's in a different book called The Lowercase Jew, The Missing Jew, brilliant marketing, right? I'm going to get the huge audience. All the Jews who love poetry. It's like a Venn diagram, All the Jews, all the ones who love poets, like this little sliver, but what a group. It's a great group, and I hope you join it. Okay. So, the broken tablets. This also has a quote from Talmud. Rabbi Joseph learned both the tablets and the fragments of the tablets were deposited in the ark. You know, I started writing The Missing Jew partly because I was given a copy. I grew up in a Reform synagogue where God wasn't mentioned and too much. But we were good people, and we meant well. But I never had seen the Talmud till I was in my 20s, and the rabbi died, and I inherited the one from the library. So I started reading it, and it sounded just like my grandfather, who had also died that year. So that was kind of what got me started, really. That sort of visceral sense of voice through all those millennia. Okay. The broken tablets were also carried in an ark, insofar as they represented everything shattered, everything lost. They were the law of broken things. The leaf torn from the stem in a storm, a cheek touched in fondness once, but now the name forgotten. How they must have rumbled, clattered on the way, even carried so carefully through the wasteland. How they must have rattled around until the pieces broke into pieces, the edges softened, crumbling, dust collected at the bottom of the ark, ghosts of old letters, old laws. Insofar as a law broken is still remembered, these laws were obeyed. And insofar as memory preserves the pattern of broken things, these bits of stone were preserved through many journeys and ruined days, even, they say, into the promised land. Thank you. I'm going to read another poem from this book. I feel I need to. It's called Grandfather Claus. It's grandfather David Kamenetz, Zikron Lebracha, who died in 1974, just before I began writing these poems. Okay. Some of what I say in this poem I later found out wasn't true. I'm a poet, I'm not an historian, what can I say? Okay, so, but a lot of it is true. If only you'd done what you'd been told to do. If only you'd not been lifted by a chance wind west above the wheat tips of Ukraine, the thunder of Nauts, the Cossacks shouting. If you had stayed instead to be murdered, the Einsatzgruppen, old men like you, fingers palsied on the trigger, bellies shaking at the recoil, would have shot you dead at the edge of a pit, slaughtered you on the outskirts of a town Jews could not enter after sundown. There is a clause that refers to you in the inner lining of a foreign language where Jew is the dirtiest word ever. This clause, prepared in advance of your name, is the secret history of your death, decreed in a grammar strange to your Yiddish, as the language I speak is still inflected by the death that might have been. Yet you entered America like a pilgrim or a germ. Which was it, or both, as America decided, with your Jewish heart and lungs and your Jewish disease and 2 strong fingers and a needle. Why should I tell that old story again? I'm still immigrating into this moment, learning that the words applied to you apply to me. Even after all this time, I will not allow anyone to annihilate your name and mine. I am grandfathered in. So I knew I was reading in a synagogue, but in my fantasy, I didn't realize it would look like this. But anyways, but I want to say something about that, because I often have felt that people spend so much money building buildings for synagogues that have no soul, and you guys built from the soul first, and I think that is so important. So I don't know if you're building one now, but anyway, that's a good place to begin. So, and I feel like I'm winning. I think I won something. You know? Kind of. All right. So this poem is called My Daughter's Bat Mitzvah. My daughter's way past bat mitzvah age now. Okay. As my daughter, still a girl, in her white tallis, received the Torah from my hands, passed to me from my father, I thought, it is so very heavy, and your shoulders are so slim. I thought, run out of here as fast as you can, down the center aisle, past the readers, out the double doors into the sun. Don't think twice, keep running, until shadows of the day release you into the dark of night, cold birds still in the oaks, no songs, only stars, where you will be free. But it was too late for the dark to obscure our woe. Already you were holding our book in your arms. Already your life and mine were bound in the same scroll with the repeating names of ancestors, Abraham and Sarah, Moses and Miriam, and laws and songs and spaces between the words where emptiness still breathes. For the sake of that emptiness and the sound of its breath, the secret name you might hear there someday, I blessed you with this heavy gift. I don't want to hold you guys too late. Hold us. Okay, I'll hold you. Okay, thank you. If you gotta go, you gotta go. Okay, that's right. I think I'll read a poem for my teacher, Rabbi Zalman Schachter Shalomi, who I met in JFK Airport, leaning against a stanchion with a beret. He was younger than I am now, and he was translating the Buddhist text, the Dhammapada, into Hebrew. I said, wow, Rabbi, where have you been all my life? Okay. And he was Anne's teacher as well, so maybe some of you knew him as well. And the poem is called Dumia, Angel of Silence, for Reb Zalman Zikron Bracha, who first spoke to me of Dumia. And some of the teachings came from here, but of course, I fooled around with them, so don't blame Reb Zalman. When I was in the womb, learning the Torah of the womb, Torah of threads of light, verses of the building bone, cell by cell, blood streamed, nerve by nerve, the angel taught me the Torah of night and day. I had no understanding, no tongue. The angel was patient as silence. Is there a Sabbath in the womb? There is not even a year. But the angel, she and he, male and female, created me it. I had no breath. The angel taught me vowels, My lungs slept quiet as flatfish at sea bottom. Eyes stirred in unbuilt lids. In the other womb of the dream, I slept and woke, sleeping and waking, waking in sleep. I lived and loved 40 years and 40 days in the telling. My heart broke, healed, and broke again in the desert, the mountain on the verge of a promised land. Then the world was created, begun before beginning. She and he created he them, and the angel created me. The flood came, and I rushed and never knew the Torah of 3 months untaught me, which I would learn, the Avram of Abraham, the Sarai of Sarah, Torah of 3 months untaught, that I must learn in actual breath. And as I cried with first air and inhuman light and the presence of the dead, my mother lying in the blood and scream of the actual hour, the angel pressed his finger to my lip and left her fingerprint there and drove all Torah from my brain and left me baffled, cold, and still. First erasure, blankness, dumb. I rushed into the unwritten world. Hey, are we running out of time? Okay. How much time do we have? Very little. Can I read one more?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
No, I wouldn't stop you before we did one more.
Okay. They might ask for what? Just one poem. Okay. Which one do you want? Okay, all right, good. I'm going to read one more. I understand. We have to go to sleep. Well, there's a poem I really wanted to read to you, so I'm going to read it. And then we can enjoy. It's called The Circulation of the Mourners. And the setting is the Temple Mount seen from the valley of Hinnom. And there's a quote from Jeremiah, who said, "And they have built the shrines of Topheth in the valley of Ben Hinnom to burn their sons and daughters in fire, which I never commanded, which never came to my mind." Actually, how can you read any more after Jeremiah? But there you go. Okay. So you have the setting. How many have been to Jerusalem? Like, how many have been to the valley, Gehenna, the valley of Ben Hinnom? Yes, around the old city. Okay, good. So they worship Moloch there, and they burn children to Moloch. That's really all I have to tell you. But anyway, I'll read the poem. The old god walked in the crevice in a narrow valley of smoke and fire, while the new god hovered between the tips of wings. Mourners circled the outer wall of the new god, who lived in a secret house within a house of prayer, though no one spoke his name. The mourners circled clockwise, non-mourners counterclockwise, or was it the other way around? Written in the book, either way, while the old god walked with eyes on the ground. How down to earth is our old god, his worshippers sang. How practical and implacable, never lifts his eyes, even to the face of the child we burned. This is how a god should be, though some said he searches for something lost in the ground. Then let us bring him gold along with the child. And the old god seemed pleased, while the new god waited for animal blood to splash against his clean white walls. The mourners circled slowly counterclockwise, while sweet smoke of the old god rose from the narrow valley to mingle with smoke of the new. When I saw a mourner circling opposite, I knew just how to greet her. But we were all mourners in the valley, all blind in confusion in the smoke. When the temple broke its walls and priests spill into the soldiers' spears, they say the new God rose straight into the sky, leaving the cherubs' wings bare, cherubs we made of fire and gold. Now the old God lives in the house among cracked basins and broken columns, a haunter of ruins, while the new God mourns in the valley of broken children. Bits of white stone have tumbled into the valley of smoke and fire, where bits of white bone are buried. It is all written in the book. Someday, I hope to read to my child. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rodger